Welcome to A Cup of Gratitude with Amanda Schaefer. Hi, I'm your host, and I'm so glad you stopped by. This podcast is really for anyone, anywhere, anytime. And it's about taking a moment to slow down and look around and actually see all of the good things that are there. There's no question that asks, is your cup half empty or half full? But I think a better question is, what's in your cup? I mean, a drop of gratitude will benefit your life unimaginably more than a full cup of anything else. So let's settle in and take a look at how we can shift our focus and embrace the joy and the wonder of the life that we have. And once you start, you won't be able to stop seeing the good. And just like me, you won't be able to stop talking about it. And somehow that creates even more. Even in the midst of difficulty, even when it's really hard, learn how to drink from a cup of gratitude. Welcome. Today we are talking with Mary Barrett. Mary shares her story of how to find gratitude through remembering. She says our life is a footpath of journeys we must take even when the seasons and environment change dramatically from what you know. Looking back and remembering makes clear every place God has been with us, like God markers. It encourages us that He is as close as the next step forward. Mary is the author of the Mother in Love devotional series. She's been on the support creative team for a children's book series, spoken and been on the hosting team of the Mother in Love and Soul Survivors women's conferences. And in recent years, Mary has been a personal trainer. She holds her certifications in kickboxing, health and wellness, life coaching. Presently, though, due to economic and family needs, Mary's been working out of her field of expertise. And she prays that her story carries the message that living in seasons of challenge and change is not where we stay, and that having our focus on Jesus as our center is critical because it reveals how God wants to use us in these places that we find difficult, those places that don't make sense to us in the moment. Sound familiar? Welcome, Mary. How are you today?
I'm very well, Amanda. Thank you so much for this time to chat with you and share all the wonderful things that God does for us.
Yeah, He sure is good, isn't He?
Yes.
I'm really excited to have this time with you. And as most of our listeners know, I like to start at the actual beginning. So would you tell us just a little bit about your childhood?
Yes. Well, my childhood was really a happy one amongst a lot going on. At age 7, my parents did divorce, and in front of me and my 2 sisters, it was very amicable. We were safe. We moved in with my grandma, my mother's mother, and dad. We drove right around the corner, and for a few short months, we lived there. After we moved out, my father's parents moved in with him where we were living in Philadelphia. Soon after that, we met the man that would become our stepfather, and my parents have been married for 42 years. He's been our stepfather. Also, in the beginning of my parents' divorce, it was discovered that I would need open heart surgery amongst everything else that was already going on.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot for a little child to go through.
Yeah, and what I really remember was everyone coming together as best they could. Everyone was dealing with so much. And there was my mom and my stepfather never leaving my side, my grandparents being present as much as possible during both surgery and recovery. But what I take from my childhood is that circumstances aren't always what you want, but where there's love, everyone seems to come out on the other side okay. And that's the one thing that I never had to doubt. And
yeah, it sounds like you've always had a strong family presence, maybe not exactly traditional, but everyone in your family showed up as best as they could, as you said. And I think that that's what's important. They showed up for you.
Absolutely. Love and family. They just were the best things. And the last bit that I really remember from my childhood was after my recovery, I loved softball. Once I was healed, there was nothing holding me back from playing years and years of softball.
Oh, that's awesome. That's always important to learn how to be in a team and to do things that are challenging for you. I think that's amazing that you're able to do that. Now,
It was,
right now, you're in what you referred to in our pre-recording call as a sacrificial season. Can you share a little more about that with us?
yes, well, I think anyone, being a mother or really just a parent, we always seem to live with the idea of sacrifice for our children and
Mm-hmm.
our family, right?
Yeah.
Um, Sacrifice, it just often seems to come with a cost to yourself. But I know that it's done without regard for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just think of Jesus, and nothing can compare to the sacrifice that he made for our salvation. It just teaches us that model for laying down yourself
Yeah.
for another. And I could never compare to that, but that just always helps me that whatever needs to be done, sometimes yourself has to be laid down. Um,
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. I mean, I know in your case, you changed your careers and you're working, and helping your children in
yeah.
this season. And for my season, I moved out of my house and sold it and moved into care for my parents. And certainly understand a sacrificial season. But like you said, what we're doing is we're really serving others, we're loving others by the example we were given by Jesus. And that's a beautiful thing.
It really is, because I know for us, these past 7 years really have been a transition phase for our family. We've had so much going on.
Yeah.
We have major moves too. We have empty nest. We have weddings. We had 5 grandbabies. And
Yeah.
currently, my husband is going through an injury that was acquired about a year and a half ago from work. And of course, came the pandemic.
Yes. The
Yeah.
pandemic. We'll get there. We talk
Uh,
about that with everyone this year just because it's had an effect in everyone's lives one way or another. But it's funny, in most cases, the pandemic has had these silver linings and kind of a reset button of looking at life in a new way and God kind of giving us possibilities that we wouldn't have had we been living the way we were before.
Yeah, because I know 2.5 years ago we transitioned back to Pennsylvania from Delaware. We had moved there for a brief time, and I really see this as a point where God showed me that He's about to really stretch, grow, and actually test some really hard places.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's just a sacrificial season, and this is where, if anything, I do feel God investing His love into me so that I can endure the things that I think are impossible.
That's right. And also, I think everything we do has a ripple effect, and we don't just get to see where all of them go. I mean, we don't see who all of them reach. And sometimes we're in seasons that don't make sense to us or places that are just really tough for us. What do you think some of those things are for you right now? Things that are rippling out because you're going to Jesus, that maybe they're far reaching and you might not see who they reach, but like what are some situations where maybe God's using you, maybe where it's not the most comfortable place to be or where you wanted to be, but he's using you?
Well, I do know for me right now that God is trying to totally deal with my attitude and the attitude with which I wake up with every day.
Hmm.
Because if I'm upset or if I'm fearful, anxious, whatever word you want to add to those emotions, it comes off very strongly in my
Hmm.
mannerisms and speech. So
Hmm.
I believe, and of course, that ripples to everyone you touch and affect, and it just does not allow them to get close to you, and you don't feel approachable. But I really have to dig deep right now to have that positive chemistry. It's confession time, to allow that to flow through me, and
Yeah.
especially at my place of work. I mean, the fruit of the spirit is that love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, long suffering, self control. They're not always easy to master in stressful situations.
No, no.
Yeah.
And so just so the listeners know, so Mary's now working in a customer service type job where she's not doing what she was led to do. She's doing something that provides for her family. And she's got to deal with people all the time, which is not easy. And I think, if you're able to go in with gratitude, you're able to go in positively, even in these negative situations with some of these negative demanding people, and share love, that's what's going to ripple out, that's what God wants to use right now in this place where you're like, why am I here?
Yeah, because what I'm learning is these people, they're hurting.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to turn my main focus on a hurting world and the ripple effect that has to come from God's love and touching everyone with a kindness and interaction that just brings a small smile to their face each day.
Yeah, and you know what? A small smile isn't a small thing. Did
No.
you did you know that actually the way your brain chemistry works, if you smile, even if it's fake, it changes your
Mm.
brain chemistry. So if you can make someone actually smile, if you can be kind enough that you can make somebody feel good, you're actually changing their day. It's not just a trite little thing. It's a big thing.
It isn't. And we've been blessed with people actually saying that to us. Just that little act of kindness, how it just changed everything in that instant.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yep.
Now, you have a lot of credentials, quote unquote. I'm air quoting in my booth here. You can't
Yep.
see me,
Yep.
but you're not able to use them right now. So, what do you think God is asking of you in this season?
Well, I believe that he is asking me to grow,
Yeah,
that I would just be willing and open to being used where I'm planted at the moment.
yeah,
Um, while nothing about what I'm doing right now is remotely close to what I thought I'd be doing or have to do it, would
yeah,
have to be doing at this point. I'll admit that I don't feel, overly fulfilled. I don't understand what I'm doing,
mhm,
where I'm being used in a place that I'm at the moment. But I know that, first of all, he is using this time. He's using, that kindness to reach other people. And
yeah,
he is using it as a way to financially bless my family with a
yeah.
stable income and chances every day to reach people who will possibly not know anything about Jesus or kindness, or just to be reminded that there's good places left in the world.
Yeah, that's right. And it's during these crazy seasons or wilderness times or times that we don't understand that God strengthens us to use us for the next thing. And as somebody who worked in health and as a fitness trainer, I mean, you understand the muscles, right?
Yeah.
So I love sharing this example because it's just so visual and tangible. It makes it so much sense that when you start working out and start increasing the weight that you're carrying, you actually form little tears in your muscle.
Yeah.
And when those tears heal, that is when you can lift something stronger. So even though things might hurt a little, feel not comfortable and not really make a lot of sense in the moment and have that soreness or that feel to it that feels broken or wounded, that as you're healing from carrying the weight, you're actually going to be able to carry more weight. So we know that that's how God works. We know that there's something else ahead.
I love that too, because we actually call that shredding the muscle. You're
Yeah.
actually shredding that muscle so that it can heal, fuse together in such a beautiful way and work with your body. And like you said, just strengthen those weaker areas that you're asked to carry and lift.
Yeah, I mean, let's put a pin right there. How beautiful is that? That God's worked into the body, that
Mhm.
brokenness and healing brings strength. Wow.
Yeah,
Amazing.
amazing. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, you met your husband around age 15, and you guys wanted to be married when you were 17 years old, but his family actually asked if you would wait. Why? And did you wait?
Well, we did wait.
Mhm.
We had met in our sophomore year in high school. He
Uh-huh.
worked for my parents. They owned a catering business at the time, and he asked me to marry him. And so his parents asked us to come and sit and talk with them one night, knowing that we were going to get married much sooner than they would really like.
Mhm.
And back then, things were done really differently in both of our families. So I didn't know what I was going to expect.
Right.
Um, my in-laws simply put it out there that they were not ready to give a blessing with our marriage plans at the moment. But if we gave them a year and still wanted to get married, that we had their blessing and full support every day after that. So
that's awesome. I mean,
amazing.
so you waited and then you got married and then you had their full blessing. So, I mean, there's a lesson in there too. You know, sometimes we don't get what we want when we want it, but if we wait, that we get a little more than we would have had. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I definitely believe that there was 2 times where my husband listened to his parents when they really asked something of that, and that honoring your mother and father, and it will go well with you
Yeah.
the rest of your life. They were our biggest supporters, our biggest fans, friends, even to this day. My father-in-law is still with us. Mom B went home to the Lord in 2008, but he's still behind us at 82. And these 31 years of listening and honoring their request has been such a blessing to us.
Yeah, I'm counting on that because, you know, I'm honoring God by honoring my parents by being here and caring for them, and I know for certain that that is something that God wants from me, and that when you honor others, you're really honoring Him. And it's not that I'm just honoring them; I'm honoring Him. And it was the same with you. You weren't just honoring their request; you were honoring God.
Yes.
Now, your mother-in-law is the one who began introducing you to the Lord. Could you tell us about the time you told me in our pre-recording call that she asked you over to dinner and she was driving you home and you said she pulled over uh, and then what happened? What happened in the car and where did you pull over? Because I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah, this is a great question because 27 years ago, actually this July, I gave my life to Jesus on July 23rd.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so I'm like this when I just love being asked this because my mother-in-law today, she turned into my very best friend. But on that particular day, what I remember is my mother-in-law, she just kept lovingly drawing me into her relationship with the Lord. Her general actions, she has such kind ways, joy-filled spirit, and scripture-filled wisdom that she just shared with everyone. And that is what she did. She just gave invitations. So as we were talking about, one night she wanted to know if I wanted to help serve at a ladies' summer salad supper. This was so important to her. So of course, I said yes, because it was for her.
Right.
And yeah, and I can't remember now all that what the speakers talked about, but I remember the call at the end to give your life to Jesus. So driving home, we talked about the night of speakers and what was going through my head. And during that conversation, my mother-in-law could tell something was stirring in my heart. And we were just a few blocks away from our home where we lived, and she noticed this dumpster. And she just turned her car in there and she explained to me everything that she was hearing from me. And she told me the best way that she could explain was to point to that dumpster and just to ask if I was ready to give all the trash of my life over to the Lord, put it in there for his eternal treasure of salvation.
Wow, that's powerful. It's powerful that she like picked a tangible thing, listened to the spirit, knew that your heart was being moved. That's amazing. So did you accept?
Yeah, I said yes, and she walked me through a prayer of salvation. We hugged, and 3 years of being a faithful mother-in-law and just sharing Jesus with me
Mhm.
that night. That was the night that my life was saved, and it was through her faithfulness
Yeah.
that she did. Because I always tell my husband, I'm like, I'm the girl that your mom didn't want to come home. I was just opposite with her, and she just lovingly took this young girl under her wing and walked me through. And three
Wow.
years, and yep, of our marriage, and she.
I think that's the first time that I've heard a testimony where someone accepted Christ in front of a dumpster.
Yes.
And I think that was so beautiful that you knew you could just give him everything, all the stuff that didn't matter, and it would be gone. That's
Yeah.
great. What a great image.
Yeah, and I just said it was because of what was shared prior to that. I believe that I felt so ready.
Yeah.
And getting to know Jesus and then just being asked on the spot, are you ready to do this? And my answer was yes, especially like we said, if our life looks like something that someone else wants, like her, like I wanted the joy, the everything she had, and
Yeah.
that was the way to get it. So of course, I just wanted to do that.
Well, it's such a good example for the people listening. Hey, it really matters that you
Yes,
have relationships with people. It really matters. People are watching your life. They see your peace. They see your joy. They want that. They need that for their own life. And when you're taking the time to pour into other people, when you take the time to live your life through the fruit of the spirit, to work through so that you are having a spirit of gratitude and thankfulness all the time, then people notice. And taking the time to just consistently be there with people, it's so important. This is our job, church. This is how we share the gospel. So beautiful.
it sure is. My mother-in-law had a kitchen table and a coffee pot on, ready for anyone to walk through that door. And when she passed, over 200 people wrote letters about how, to the family, about how she affected their lives. That
Wow.
to this day, I wish that they will put into a book. I mean, it just was amazing. Like you said, those little acts of kindness that you had no idea rippled
Yeah.
onto all these people out there. She just was such a
Yeah.
blessing and a servant of the Lord.
Yeah, in the Bible, it says, I believe it's in Ecclesiastes, but don't quote me on that. But it basically says, like, sow your seed in the morning and in the evening, for
Mm,
you don't know which will work, this or that, or maybe both together. That it's our job to constantly be sowing the seed, to constantly be putting things out there. It's not something you do just now and again. It's something you do all the time. And you do it not really knowing which thing's going to work, but that's not the point. That's not our job. That's God's job.
yes.
Our job's to put it out there. Wow.
Yes.
What a wonderful woman. Now, you had
Yeah.
said when you were 8 years old, you had open heart surgery, and you
Yeah.
told me that it was due to a hole in your heart, which I find just imagery wise, you had this hole in your heart and now it's filled with God. Beautiful. But
Mm.
how did that affect you? Now, you talked about all the family coming and being great support. You had a miraculous recovery and God's hand was on you. Like, how did you respond to that? Yes, you played softball. What other things changed?
Um, like you said, I was so young and I was blessed with such good memories, good support. The doctors were incredible, the nurses, um, and I did have a wonderful recovery. I was to be in the hospital quite a long time, but I was out within 11 days. I mean, back
Wow.
then they didn't do the surgeries the way they do them today. They actually had to take my heart like out of my body
Hmm.
and work on it, where would they put what was like a tire patch covering it, and then they had to put it back in, and they told my mom that they had one chance to restart it once the
Wow.
surgery was, yeah, I guess machines were keeping me alive until they were going to reintroduce my heart into my body.
Wow.
um, but I didn't, and I had no real physical restrictions or dietary restrictions after that. But I do believe the only negative takeaway might have been the awareness that I now had a big scar. And back then, it was huge. My mother had two options that, I had a big T right across the top, all the way down to the bottom, or
Mhm.
they could have done a smaller one that, as women develop, might have been covered more. But she opted for the T because it was so new and that was the best course of action.
Mhm.
But that scar had, it really made me notice my body. I remember I didn't like people seeing it, and I
Yeah.
always kept it cover up. Yeah, the first time ever that I was now really aware of self and body image.
Huh.
And yeah, those were my biggest takeaways from that.
Wow. Well, you were young, and
Yeah.
that's why I asked the question because, maybe if you were looking at it as an older person, you might see more of the miraculous. But as a kid, it was like, okay, I have this issue. I have to go through this surgery. Now I can do things I couldn't do before, but whoa, look at this scar.
Yeah.
And doesn't doesn't that happen to us a lot when we're young? Things we see them from a different light than we would as a grown up, and we magnify and concentrate on different parts of the story than I think we do as a grown up. And I love the fact that you carry a scar that fixed the hole in your heart, because Jesus carries a scar that fixed the hole in your heart. It's beautiful.
And I always laugh because when I married my husband, his name is Tom. And he always, oh, you didn't have to have my initial tattooed on you. So there's a T on my chest. My husband's name is Tom.
Oh, that's funny.
Yes.
So speaking about body imagery, you had told me that at one point you got very heavy. How do you think you got overweight? Why do you think it happened?
I just think unawareness really of how much I was putting into my body. There was, always good food around. I felt happy. I felt loved. And it subconsciously, I just felt really safe. I have a husband who loves me unconditionally
Yeah.
for who I am, how I am, and it just really was, I believe, something that I was not aware of.
Yeah, I can see that happening, especially like you said, Italian family. There was always good food around. I don't
Yeah.
think people looked at weight the same way that they do now. I certainly know I'm 57. When I was younger, as a younger person, we didn't exercise. We just were what we were, you know. Now you've got like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old girls who are exercising and looking at their
Oh, yeah.
calories, which is crazy.
Yeah, and
Um,
we don't understand. We didn't understand or talk about really what food does, and
yeah,
just making simple choices. Yep.
yeah. Now, if you really think about it, though, what do you think eating might have been a substitute for?
Ah, that's a good question. Like I said, I've just maybe even eating was not to even consider that I was heavy. I remember thinking, watching people on diet, that's crazy. And then I would eat another cheesesteak. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
seriously, I really did. I'd be like, diet, what is that all about?
right.
I just, yeah, like I said, I was in such a good place, but it could have been actually suppressing the obvious that I might not have wanted to deal with. That even though we're made in God's image, we are perfect, beautiful in every way, but we do need to take care of our bodies. What we are asked to be stewards of what God gave us, and
Yeah.
I might not have. I was not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, we all can look at our lives and look at times where we weren't good stewards of something. And, you know, God so lovingly normally ushers us to where we need to be. And sometimes it's God we listen to, and sometimes it's ourselves, and sometimes it's other people. Now, there was a point that you pivoted, and you told me that at age 30, you
Yes.
began to call yourself obese. And why did it suddenly matter to you? Because you went from what's a diet? I'll have another cheesesteak to, oh my gosh, I'm obese. Like, what happened? Why did it change?
Yeah, basically, it was a comment made that some of us should lose some weight,
Hmm.
and that comment caused me to look at myself and see physically that statement must be true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could not be denied that I put on more than excess weight with my children,
Yeah. Now,
and
how did
yeah,
that how did that feel when that comment was made? How did it feel? How did it make you feel? What was your first reaction? Honestly.
I guess angry because I think they could not possibly be talking about me. I mean, I went right to anger. And then my next feeling was like a red flag, like, whoa, there may be something to what's being shared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to be seen as, it could be prideful, but I'm 4 foot nothing on my best day. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to be seen as short and fat.
Yeah.
And since you can't change your height, right? But you can do something about your weight.
Yeah. How you had told me that you took it as a challenge.
Yeah.
And you began to walk out a challenge that you felt to lose weight. Like, first of all, and make the question more complicated, why do you think you took it as a challenge?
Yeah, because of my personality. I am an all or nothing person. When I do something, no matter who it's for, what it's about, I will give you 110%.
Mhm.
I don't think of myself as competitive, but I definitely have very high expectations because if I were to play a board game with you,
Mhm.
I am not out to win. That's fun for me. But if there's a challenge or something that I'm asked to complete, I take that very serious and I set a very high bar,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Okay, it does. You began to walk out that challenge
Yep.
that you felt to lose weight. So, how did you go about doing that? And do you think it got to the point where you started to be obsessive about your weight or your appearance at some point?
Oh, without a doubt. I remember the first thing was making the declaration to my husband that I
Mhm.
was going to lose a little bit of weight. And later, I remember he shared with me that that statement scared him so much because he knows what an intense person I am,
Mhm.
and I don't do anything little. So right away, he had um, that red flag of danger that
Yeah.
was heading away. And I remember I also did add exercise right away to my daily routine.
Mhm.
I included the children, and we just got up one day and we danced with them to Richard Simmons, and the rest, as they say, took off from there. A few months later, it became very ugly. I was boxing. They were not included. That they didn't feel that they could keep up with me. So it
Mhm.
became my I was very introverted then with my exercise. It was all encompassing and all to myself when the dark times really started with that.
Kind of became your identity?
Oh, yes, because that's what it was. There was nothing that was going to be done if I didn't exercise at this time, at this level,
Yeah.
at this speed every day. It was 6 days a week. Yeah, 1 hour
Wow.
a day. I mean,
Wow.
I let nothing basically stop me.
Yeah, I can kind of understand it, and I don't diet per se, but I try to eat healthy. I keep check on what I'm having. I try to exercise. I try to do the best that I can. I can't go to a gym anymore. I used to go to a gym
Right.
and stopped because of my parents and then decided I can do everything here. Kind of made my own little gym here. But I do notice that if I stay in that mode and I go to a birthday or somebody wants to have cheesesteaks or whatever, and I don't have a treat every now and then, that I could get kind of stuck. I try not to get on the scale every day. I'll get on the scale once every couple of weeks or whatever,
Okay.
just to see, okay, I think I'm doing everything the same. But I think it would be really easy to turn it kind of into this is what I must do. I must lose another pound. I must stay here. I must only have this many calories. I mean, how many calories were you living on a day?
Oh, it was crazy. I was very strict, 700 calories a day.
Whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah,
700.
700 in the beginning during my bad times. Totally different today. Obviously, I'm not a
Yeah.
calorie counter. And when I hit that number, I'm telling you, you could not even force a piece of gum, which is 5 calories, because I knew the calorie content of everything.
Wow.
That would not cross my lips. 700 calories a day, taking care of 3 children at home, etc.,
That's
etc.
unreal. That's less than a child should have.
It was hard, yes. And I just, like I said, I went full throttle and it just became all consuming. And
Did
yes,
you did you
and
weigh things on a scale? Like, how did you keep
oh, yes, I had weekly weigh ins. And
No,
then,
the food. Did you weigh
oh,
the
oh,
food?
no, I looked at the back of packages and,
Oh, okay.
all that, I just took it from there. Yeah, that type of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. I thought I said, did you weigh yourself?
No, no, I figured you weighed yourself if you
All the
were
time,
yeah.
all the time.
So what was your lowest weight?
I remember that in a matter of 18 months, I went from 234 pounds on a little body that I told you that I have to 78. And that was the last time that I personally have ever seen my weight on the scale.
Wow. Wow. 78. That is crazy low.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're 3 foot high. Wow.
Yeah,
Now,
because we have a grandchild now who is 4 and he's 73 pounds. My granddaughter is 75 pounds at age 6. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Wow. How long did it take you to recover and get healthy again?
This is a question that I think about often because I believe that as an addict, you're always in that recovery
Hmm.
phase.
Hmm.
You have triggers and thoughts that are sometimes they're actually fought daily.
Hmm.
Um, but the actual sickness lasted about 7 years. Also, a very short time in comparison to how long many people suffer with anorexia as an addiction, because it's years and years and years. I was in there for 7, which I'm told is a very brief time. Yeah, so and then up to present day, because it took 3 years to get to a good place. And after that, the present day, continuing to stay there. And
Hmm.
it's by God's grace and maintaining it and using all that I learned and became, and just want to share and help others with that knowledge.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's wonderful that that's what you want to do with it. Because I think taking our broken places, taking our traumas and turning them into a place where you could connect to others and give them hope and help them get healing is really our only recourse. But what I'm thinking is, I'm hearing like, okay, so it took 18 months for you to lose all of that weight and go from overweight, which is unhealthy, to underweight, which is when was unhealthy, but 7 years to begin to heal. And for some reason, it's reminding me of the old saying that it takes 21 days to create a habit, but only 3 days to break it. And I think what we have to realize with all these times that you've just given us is that we need to be intentional about the good things. You know, it's just why this is called a cup of gratitude. It's why we look to Jesus in the midst of difficult times. But we need to consciously make these good habits, you know, whether it's sitting down and reading the word, whether it's eating what we're supposed to eat, or having some exercise every day, or making sure we have time for rest. Like you said earlier, we're supposed to be good stewards of the lives we've been
Mhm.
given. And we have to do it in every area. And it takes discipline, people. It takes
Yeah,
discipline. And it's so easy to break a good habit.
it sure is.
And it's so hard to make one. But if you consistently show up every day with this good attitude and seeing the big picture that this is what's best for me, because that's what happens a lot. God will tell you what's best for you, or you can look at what you think's best for you. Doesn't
Ex-
always make sense to do what God says. But if you know who he is, you learn to trust him and know, okay, if he's saying this is best, that's what I do.
Yeah, because he does love us so much. He really does.
Yeah. Now, you told me at one point when it was really bad, one night your husband went out after you fell asleep, and apparently you fell asleep really early because you had like no energy. Um, he heard a voice tell him something, like an actual audible voice.
Yeah.
What was the voice? What did it say? And how did he respond? Because this is kind of how you began your healing process.
Yeah, sure was. For many years, my husband would just see a puddle of his wife asleep on the couch. I don't even think it was asleep. There was nothing left of me by like 6 p.m.
Mhm.
So he had the children and everything yet to deal with. And those years were so rough on my husband, and our lives have changed so much that he didn't even know what anything looked like anymore. All he knew to do was to worry about me and to try and keep it together as best he could for the children and make sure that we were all going to be okay and get through it. And a part of our marriage is intimacy. And that part of our marriage was gone too. And I had barely enough energy to make it through a day.
Yeah.
So one night he said that he just couldn't deal with our lives and what they become. He decided he was going out to a bar and basically let nature take its course, as they say.
Mhm.
But instead of going in, he believes God stopped him like right in his tracks. He said he no sooner turned the key off the ignition that he heard an audible voice clearly saying, "Go home."
Mhm.
So, yeah, he never went into that bar.
Wow.
He came home completely convicted. And that was the night that he introduced to me that he was my intervention and that it
Mhm.
was time to get well, for lack of a better word.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. God
Yes.
stopped him in his tracks, turned him around, and used him as the avenue to help you get healthy. Now you were
Oh, he sure was. He sure was.
you were diagnosed with an eating disorder and you worked on recovery, and that's amazing. But at one point, you got to the place where I believe you felt healthy enough that you decided to be a fitness coach. That sounds like it could have been a slippery slope based on your personality, your history of what had happened. Like, how did that go? And were you able to exercise in a balanced and healthy way?
Well, I just think it's so funny that, again, it was my husband that the Lord used and having really good discernment about me. Even to this day, he still watches me. So I know that I'm safe. He is my biggest like gauge and monitor. Like he tells me when things are getting off balance.
Mhm.
But to get to the point, he really put me on this path. He is a bus driver. Um, and he had a man on his bus who was a personal trainer, and they talked. And he told him about how much I love working out, a little bit about my story,
Mhm.
and the passion that I have gained for fitness. And the man just simply gave my husband the information, the packets to get started, his card, and to reach him. And he presented it to me. And 4 months after that, I did have my personal training license.
Awesome. Now,
Yeah.
how was it working with other people? How was it helping other people get healthy?
Oh, it's the best gift that the Lord has ever given. The letters, everything, working with these people and being able to take care of them and to show them um, balance. And I've come such a long way. Still a daily intention to do the things that are right for my body.
Mhm.
But looking back in this one area, I wouldn't do it any other way. It's just for the lessons and the people. And I loved my time being a personal trainer and just taking care of people and watching their health come along and accomplishing things that they not think was possible in a loving, encouraging, and safe environment. I really take such personal intention with everyone I work with, that they're a
Mhm.
blessing and a gift.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's awesome. Now
Yeah.
you've written some books and had the opportunity to speak, but
Yes.
now you're in this waiting period, where
Yes.
you aren't doing those things. How does that make you feel?
Again, a tough question because my transparent answer, it just really seems to be so self-focused, for lack of a better phrase.
Mhm.
When I remember back, I saw a purpose and a usefulness that for the Lord that I'm not seeing at the moment. I mean, I remember I was writing, speaking, what I felt was touching lives. So to be doing it all different, I just don't think that I have my mind wrapped around all of that yet, what he wants from me. I guess I just don't see it as the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, the things that I viewed as my gifts and talents are the things I'm not at the moment seemingly able to use. It makes me feel a little empty, but I just have to trust that there's going to be a purpose at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I again completely understand. I when I moved here, I had to cancel book signings and cancel speaking engagements. And anyone who knows me, I'm rather gregarious, and connection is kind of my love language. So being so shut off was really difficult. And I didn't understand it either. But I thought, okay, this is my season. I'm serving you, God, by serving my parents. And maybe all that just has to wait or come to fruition in another way at another time. And when I cried out to him and let him know how cut off I felt, and admitted it to myself, I mean, I think that's important too.
Yeah.
That was when I heard him speak. That was when he said, "Oh, Amanda, there's a lot of ways to tell stories." And, this podcast was the result. Next thing I knew, I went out and got a microphone, and I was, tearing apart a closet and turning it into a cute little podcast booth, and, declaring that I wanted to share God's story and other people's stories. And, he had to bring the people to me. I'll do it. Let's go. And here we are 6 months later. And this podcast, only because of God, has nothing to do with me. But because I have said that this is for you, God, I think God uses it in amazing ways. And it is currently in like 43 countries. And I think last time I checked, like 355 cities all over the world. That's crazy. But that's what God will do kind of when we're at the end of our rope, or at the bottom of the valley, or whatever, fill in the blank. You're at that place where, like, this is not what I thought. I thought I was doing what you wanted. Like, this is not it. And I think it's in that crying out. So I know you're in that process still, so it was difficult to answer the question, but I'll be interested to hear from you when you get the answer.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes the waiting seems excruciating, but it's important. God is working. He is strengthening things. He's doing something now that you won't be able to do what the answer is until you've been through.
Yeah. And it's really hard sometimes to work through that feeling empty, feeling, not as excited, or to go through a day feeling anxious and am I wasting time? And then you're just like, oh, you just you just want to feel that again, especially for the Lord. You're like, you're just so excited to share all these things, and you're in a place where no one's listening. Lord, I want to tell them about you.
Yeah, but they are, and that's the thing. It's like the ripples. It's like sowing the seed. You're not going to always know.
No.
Your job is to be the best Mary Barrett you can be, the best disciple of Jesus you can be, the most positive, focused person carrying the gospel with the benefit of the fruit of the Spirit that you can be. That's your job.
Yes, definitely.
But you also know God is who he says he is, and he's with you, and he's faithful, and he's using it. It is hard when you can't see how it's being used. You can't do analytics on, I showed up at work today and I made a couple people smile, and I didn't lose my, temper when I should have. And, but it makes a difference. It makes a difference. And the reason I'm sharing your story is because a lot of people are in the place you're in. A lot of people don't have big platforms. And, I don't share just famous people's stories. I share everyone's story.
Everyone's, definitely. I said, it's just so great. This is such a blessing. Like it is when we remember back that we see, oh yes, God's there. God's there. He brought me through this. He took me here. I was used there. And in these times of what we think are dry and unproductive, he's like, no, but I'm preparing you, and you're going to look back at this and say the same things. Where you say, oh yeah, well, when I was working with customer service, this is why I was there. And it is all glory and honor will go to him.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, I know you believe he has a plan for your life. Like, do you know what you think it is?
Well, like you just said, I do know he does have a plan for me. I mean, like I was just saying, I've seen it many, many times before. But I just believe, knowing what it is now, I am struggling with. But I know that I'm needed in my family right now in many of the ways that we had talked about, physically, financially, emotionally. But other than that, to be honest, I don't quite know. But I do know, as we just talked about, that he will reveal the next step And the last part of it is in his time, which has been something that I really need to hold on to, believe in his time.
That's right. And you know what? Even if the purpose is that there are people out there listening to this who are in that same season and they're not alone, they just can sit there and hear you and realize they're not alone.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, we do feel alone when we are in these seasons, but when we do share, we do listen, we do try and connect with other people, we just see that that isn't true, that we all do connect. There is a story, there is a purpose, and we're all part of God's wonderful plan.
That's right. That's right. Now, if you could give anyone listening who's struggling with weight issues as you did, any advice, what would that be? Because I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you that because you were on both sides of unhealthy.
Yeah, that is a great question. I do believe that first and most, you need to understand your value, as we said, which I didn't, as you are right now, your value to others, your family, and to God. There's nothing about you that is wrong, because that word diet, it automatically sends that connotation that there's something wrong with you. You have to go on a diet. So everyone has a diet. So what we need to do is to make our diet a good one, as you had mentioned earlier. And second, if weight is something you want to deal with, like you said, from being at both ends of the spectrum, it's totally understanding your why. Why do you want to lose weight? Before you even start, it was shared with me that you have to have those clear goals. Try as best you can to set boundaries for yourself. Ask questions and seek those who will journey with you and keep you accountable, that you're not heading in directions that you shouldn't head. And finally, do it from the place of wellness. Embrace, the whole aspect, as I know you have coming along, your spiritual, your emotional, and your physical wellness is all linked together. And I did that wrong when I first took off. So that lesson alone has just been so valuable to me whenever I have to pause and think about that.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. And part of that advice, I think, is really important to look at is to not do it alone, to have people to hold you accountable. And I think when we do things alone, we sometimes our inner voice distorts it. Or our situation distorts it. And we need those people to check in. And it's biblical with many advisors, that we can make wise choices. So I think it's really important to at least have one other person, if not many others, that can speak into your life and your experience. And, as Mary said, to try to do this from a place of wellness and to ask yourself all the important questions. Great advice. And then my last question for you today is my favorite question. Anyone who listens knows I do just think it's always such a great answer. If you could give your younger self any advice, what would that be?
Wow. And I'm sure, like me, many people would love to say so much, but I've expressed my intense personality, my need for perfection. And I would say to myself, don't miss out by striving for perfection, but find what is perfect in the moments that you're in.
Wow.
Yeah, I spent most of my married life, which started at 19, trying to be a perfect wife, the perfect homemaker, perfect mother, perfect whatever it was I was doing, instead of finding those moments that were already perfect. And in those moments that I was good enough.
Yeah. I think so many of us lack the ability to appreciate what we have as good. That's wonderful advice as well. Well, Mary, I am just so glad that we had the time to talk today. I'm so thankful for your sharing your story. I know there are going to be people that this really resonates with, people that are going to get into a place of wellness because what you're saying makes sense and it strikes their heart as truth. And I'm sure that as God takes you through the rest of your waiting period in this season, that you are going to hear what comes next, and that you will be refreshed and revived. And that in the meantime, you just keep drinking from his living water. You just keep spending time with him. And no matter where we are or what our circumstances, he's always more than enough.
Oh, he is. And he's proven it, like I said, over and over. And I just know in my heart he's going to do it again, and is doing it. Because we think that he's not active. God is always doing something. He is not unaware of us. No
That's
matter
right.
wherever, he is not unaware. So to have a God like that, I'm just so grateful.
Absolutely. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for spending time with us
Thank
today and
you.
for sharing your story. It was wonderful to talk with you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you as well. Like you said, just your ministry of putting God's story out there, the God stories that we all have.
Well, I'm happy to do it. I get so encouraged, and it's a win-win for me. I get to do something for God's kingdom and for other people to support them, and I get encouraged along the way. So it's not something I would ever thought I'd be doing, but boy, do I love it.
Yes. Amen to that.
Well, Mary, I hope you have an amazing day today. Go be grateful, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. You as well.
Hey, so I just want to thank you so much for spending your time with me. And I want to challenge you to go out today and to just take notice and to stop and really look around and find at least one good thing, one thing to be thankful for. You know, if you do that today, you're going to find so many more things tomorrow without even trying. Because once you start, you begin to see what's always been there. And if you need a refill, you can come join me again for another cup. Make sure to subscribe and have an awesome day, and go be grateful.